Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to another case study update for this mega website that I'm building. So this is the fourth video in the series, and this will also be covering month 7 for the month of August. So in this video, I'll be covering the Google Search Console, the traffic for the month of August, the EZOIC earnings, my EPMV, some additional revenue that I've added onto the website through Amazon affiliates, some content and backlink kind of insights into the website, as these are very common questions. I'll also kind of briefly be covering some things that I've been thinking about throughout the month, and these are the power of clusters and a really awesome reference that I'll be sharing with you guys if you haven't already watched it. And then I'll be showing kind of my thoughts on the power of focus for SEO, whether or not I should keep growing my team, things I personally need to stop doing, and also my updated goals for this website. So going back to the beginning, this is just a brief overview of the traffic from the inception of the website in February as to the end of August. So moving on to the first slide of Google Search Console, there's nothing really exciting to report here. The clicks and impressions continue to go in the right direction, which is good to see. And around the end of August, there did seem to be a glitch in the reporting in Google Search Console, but that has seemed to correct itself. So for the click-through rate and the average position, this does seem to have dropped a little bit, but I do find when the clicks and impressions go up, then like with a big surge, then I do find these two metrics can also have a slight dip. And I think this is mainly because Google might suddenly index maybe 50 to 100 posts. So the click-through rate and position can drop as those posts might be in position 200. But as soon as those start to kind of gain momentum and increase in the SERPs, then that does seem to stabilize, which is good to see as well. So really nothing much to report on this slide. So moving over to the traffic, in the month of August, I did receive a grand total of 528,000 page views, which is just incredible to see. I'm really happy with these results. And if you were to tell me at the start of February that I was going to reach these numbers on a 7-month-old website on a brand new domain name, I simply wouldn't believe you, as from my previous websites and just in general, this is very rare to see. I'm not trying to boast or anything like that, but this is just definitely unusual. Typically, it takes me 1.5 to 2 years to get anywhere close to this traffic. So to do it in under 7 months, I really am blown away. And if I'm going to reference back to my previous video, I do think this is the power of front-loading content. Because up until this point, I've published around 1,300 blog posts in 7 months. So I do think that is by far the major contributing factor as to why there's this amount of traffic on a new website. And additionally, I do think this has a large part to do with informational content as well. If I was going to front load this amount of content on an affiliate website, I don't think I'd be anywhere close to the traffic that I'm receiving for this website. So for my goals for the month of August, I was hoping to hit 17,000 daily page views, which I did reach and I'm really happy about. And my monthly goal was also 450,000 monthly page views, which I also did pass as well. So for the month of September, I am hoping to hit 30,000 daily page views and hit 750,000 monthly page views. Again, I am making ambitious goals every month. Whether or not I'm going to hit those, I guess we'll just have to wait and see toward the end of the month. So moving on to the earnings of the website for the month of August through EZOIC, and I did reach a grand total of $10,358, which is just mind-boggling. Again, if you were to tell me this at the start of this website, I just simply wouldn't believe you. I was hoping to hit these numbers if I was lucky by the end of the year. But this website has just really taken off, and I'm really glad to see that it has, as I have kind of put quite a substantial amount of capital into this investment. So as you can see here, we have a darker greener color in the EZOIC, and I was invited into EZOIC Premium. So I did accept the 2-week free trial in which I turned on the 25th of August. So I'm just going to trial that out and see whether or not I like it. I'm personally not a big fan of paying upfront for their premium service, but from what I can tell, they're almost guaranteed to put money back into your pocket. So if I spend $1 and get $1.30 back, then it's kind of a no-brainer to do that. So that has added $406 on top of the EZOIC earnings, which was $9,951. So moving on to the EPMV. So in my previous video, I did cover that I didn't actually turn on or install the ads.txt file. So as soon as I did that, it took around a week for the new EPMV to stabilize. So previously, I think it was around $6 to $9. It kind of fluctuated. But as soon as I installed the ads.txt file, it shot all the way up to $32 per 1,000 sessions or page views. And then it dropped down, and it's now stabilizing around $20 to $23, which I'm really, really happy to see. Since this is 90% American traffic, I was expecting to see at least a $15 RPM or EPMV. So to just go over that to $20, I'm really, really happy to see that. And that kind of does reassure me that I can continue to reinvest back into this project. Excuse me. So moving on to the next slide, I did decide to add Amazon affiliate links into posts that made sense to add it. So pretty much all of the content on my website is answering questions. So in some instances, some of the solutions are to maybe recommend a product which would help the reader to fix their issue. So in this instance, it did make sense from a user intent point of view to actually give a link to the reader, as it actually would help them. So I'm only adding links to posts where it's actually going to help the reader. So I'm not trying to force any of the links down the throat of the readers, as I think that will just end up being a really poor user experience. So I do plan on going through the posts and seeing where I can kind of add these extra angles for adding products that might help the reader. So for the month of August, there was $390 in commissions. There was 2,500 clicks, excuse me, and the conversion rate was actually surprisingly high at close to 14%. So I think this is kind of a no-brainer to add Amazon affiliate links. I said in my previous videos that I definitely am not a fan of Amazon affiliate, and that continues to be my opinion. However, this actually does help the reader, so it does make sense to add those in. And again, I'm not relying purely on Amazon. I think they're going to continue to cut commissions in the coming years. So I'm not relying on this, but if it does bring in extra revenue and increases the overall valuation of the website, and it just adds extra diversity, which a buyer might want to see, then I do think it does make sense to add these in. So moving on to the next slide, and this is just a brief overview of the content and backlinks on the website. So currently I have around 1,350 posts, close to 1.2 million words of published content, and the average word count is around 900 words. I'd say most of my posts are between 750 to 1,200 words, so they really are on the shorter side. But for this particular niche, it kind of would be a bit of a stretch to go beyond maybe 1,200 to 1,500 words, as there simply wouldn't be enough subtopics to cover in these particular posts. And if I was to go beyond that, then I would just be kind of adding fluff into the content. It would end up costing me more money, and it would also be a poor user experience for the reader, as it just simply wouldn't be relevant content at all. So I really have kind of tried to trim the fat for these articles, and it allows me to publish more at a cheaper rate. Now moving on to the backlinks and the domain rating, I'd say this is by far one of the most common questions that I get asked, and that's the DR and the referring domains that I have. So a lot of the times I actually don't know these metrics off by hand, as I simply don't track these, but I actually went into Ahrefs and took these. So currently the DR of the site is 13, and there are 1,800 referring domains. So this does seem like quite a lot, but I'd say maybe 95% or maybe even 98% of these domains are just spam. They're all the blogspot domains or just scraping domains. So I'd say maybe only around 50 to 60 domains are actually high quality backlinks that I would consider to be of value to the website. So in reality, I would say there's maybe around 50 to 60 referring domains, and this was all just done through organic backlinks that I've received from websites and also the Haro outreach as well. But again, I'm not really paying too much attention to these, as I'm pretty much focusing 98% of my time into producing as much content for this website. So now moving on to some different aspects of this case study, and these are some things that I've kind of learnt and been thinking about during the month. And the first one is the power of clusters. So I actually watched a really awesome YouTube video on Matt Diggity's channel, and he was interviewing someone called Corey. I think that's the right way to pronounce his name. And he's had a really interesting experience on producing really in-depth content clusters and just crushing it for purely informational websites. So I've kind of been following the same approach to what Corey has been doing, and that is to try and go as deep as you possibly can into a content cluster, because the way Google sees content, or clusters of content rather, is that you kind of have to write on every single node to be considered a topical authority on that particular subject. And one really kind of interesting thing that I found from that particular interview is that even if you're going to be writing a piece of content that might get hardly any traffic whatsoever, it still is quite beneficial to do that, as you are kind of adding extra nodes into that cluster. So that kind of gives Google a better picture that you are the kind of authority on this particular subject. So even though that might cost you money to produce and it's not going to bring you any revenue or traffic, it does kind of complete the topical map in Google's eyes for the cluster. So if you have these extra nodes when compared to your competition, then that actually might give you the slight edge as you kind of have a deeper understanding of the subject. So that's a really worthwhile video, and I actually am planning to go back and watch that, as I really did get a ton of value from that particular interview. And I'll leave a link down below in the video description for anyone who hasn't watched it. So moving on to the next one, and this is the power of focus. So I know this sounds like a bit Tony Robbins, but previously, for myself personally, I do get distracted really easily. I for sure have shiny object syndrome. I'm very guilty of that. And I think in particular in the SEO industry, as opposed to maybe a brick and mortar store or e-commerce, it's really easy to just get a website online, do some keyword research. You can do that in around an hour, and that can kind of send you down a rabbit hole that you didn't possibly intend to go down. But when you compare this to brick and mortar or maybe e-commerce, it does take a lot of time, investment, and energy to open up another store or product. So I think this is a really easy trap to fall into in the SEO industry, and this is something that I've fallen into many times before. So just in comparison, last year, I think I made around 6 or 7 websites. I was just kind of all over the place. I wasn't focusing on one particular project, and I think that did show in my results. However, in 2021, I've pretty much focused all of my time, attention, and energy on this one particular project. And I think it is paying dividends, as I'm not kind of getting distracted by other things. I do plan on making other strategic websites so I can see them now and work on them down the track. But I do think that just focusing on one particular project is just really underrated in any industry, and in particular the SEO industry. And this might sound super obvious. I know this is like one of the top things that people always recommend, when you start a business or a website, but just to actually put it into action and see the results, I think it is very, very powerful. Now, moving on to the next slide. So this is kind of something that I've been asking myself on whether or not I should keep growing my team and try to publish even more content. So at the moment, I would say I am at a pretty comfortable stage where I have around 10 to 15 writers kind of on and off, and they're producing all of the content. And then I do have a writer and a virtual assistant. I have an editor and a virtual assistant that does most of the editing and all of the formatting as well. So I have been following a couple of other case studies of some really great content publishers that have in excess of like 50 writers. So I'm saying to myself whether or not I should try to keep growing and growing and growing. So I'm personally not the best at building out systems and processes. So this is something that I'm continually trying to improve. So I have thought about growing my team, trying to publish even more content. But then it kind of goes back to the question on whether or not that will actually bring me any more kind of happiness or fulfillment in my business. I'm sure I would be able to do it if I really did push myself. But then it kind of goes back, do I want to bring on extra stress on myself? And kind of going back to the original ideas of why I made this website, or rather going into this industry, because for myself personally, I do like to maybe stop working for a month and just not focusing on anything related to work. However, if I have a kind of 50-person team, unless I have someone managing that, then that is something that will add to my stress levels. So again, I have kind of been deliberating whether or not to continue down this path, maybe get someone to manage the overall project. But in saying that, I actually do like kind of doing the keyword research, checking the articles. So I don't want to remove myself too much from the business, but that's just something that I have been thinking about in the past couple of months. So moving on to the next slide, and this is one thing that I personally need to stop doing, and that is to check my Google Analytics like 5 to 10 times a day. Especially when you're building a website in its infancy, it can be really, really exciting to go into Google Analytics, check the traffic, because you can see those incremental gains, even day over day, week over week, in the first kind of 1 month to 1.5 years of the website. However, doing this really brings no value to what I'm doing whatsoever. It's just a vanity metric. It's kind of just to boost my ego a little bit. But in reality, it doesn't move the needle whatsoever. So I really, really need to kind of almost block Google Analytics on my browser so I actually can't check it, as I really, really am guilty of doing this. So moving on to the last slide, and this is my updated goals for this website for the end of the year. So my goal is to publish a grand total of 2,400 total posts. So I have a few more months to do that, and I think I can do that as I have been ramping up the content to where it is now, where I can produce around 200 to 300 posts per month. And my goal is to hit 1.2 million visits. So that really is an ambitious goal. But with the amount of content that I'm producing on a monthly basis, I do think that this is actually possible. I would be really, really happy if I even hit 1 million page views. But I am going to stretch that a little bit further and try to hit 1.2 million monthly page views. And additionally, I am looking to hit 30,000 in monthly revenue through ads. So especially in the end of the year, November, December, ad rates can go up by 30 to I think 80%. So even if my RPMs go from $21 to $30 and I am hitting 1 million monthly page views, then that would be around $30,000, maybe more, depending on the Black Friday, the holiday seasons, and it also might be less as well. But if things continue to go as they are, and I'm hoping they do, but again, this is SEO, things can happen from out of the blue and really kind of catch you off guard. But if things continue to track the way they are, I am hoping to hit all of these 3 milestones by the end of the year. Now, once it rolls over to January, If I do hit this, I would obviously expect this to drop down, as the first 2 quarters of the year do have lower ad rates. But I am hoping to hit this number in the holiday season, specifically November and December. So one last thing I wanted to kind of call out to all of you out there is that I am doing a complete overhaul of my home office. I was previously working at a co-working space, but with all the lockdowns here in Australia and around the world, I have been working from home for the last, I don't know, year and a half almost. So I am looking to get a completely new setup, so desk, monitors, computer, all of that kind of stuff. So I'd be really, really interested to see what type of monitor setup you use as a blogger / digital publisher. I know many people recommend the dual setup, but I'm actually leaning towards the curved ultra-wide 34-inch monitor. But I'd be really, really interested to see what all of you guys are using out there for your monitor setup. And I do plan on getting a M1 Mac Mini and just plugging that in and having my laptop to work on the kitchen table or on the couch or out in the cafe or whatever it might be. So that's pretty much my update for the month of August, guys. Hopefully you did get some value from this. And again, I do plan on making videos on other topics in the coming weeks or maybe months. I know a lot of people have asked me for the keyword research video, but I think personally I don't really have too much to add. There's so many great videos on YouTube on how to do keyword research, so I'm not really adding anything new to that particular topic. There's so many great videos out there that you can watch. So I'm not doing anything that's like a secret method or like a hack. I'm just using the same methods that everyone else is using on finding low competition keywords. So that's it for this video, guys. Again, hopefully you did get some value from it, and I'll see you all in the next one.